Yes, guys, hello and welcome back to the Spurs-Related YouTube channel. I hope everyone's doing very well today. Hopefully, my frames will stop lagging. There we go. And yeah, we're back talking about all things Tottenham Hotspur, all things transfers. And as you can see from the thumbnail of the video, MARC GUÉHI is a talking point today. There has been a couple of links. Heung Min Son is on the agenda in terms of his future as well, and all the latest updates. I hope you guys enjoy these transfer live streams. I hope you are enjoying the channel and the content. It's pretty much daily at the moment, so we keep bringing you guys that. Keep smashing the like, keep smashing the subscribe. Really appreciate all the support. But Frank, how are you doing, my Thomas Frank AI friend?
I'm all good. I'm all good. There's been some different bits of news today. It's not just all Gibbs-White, which is quite nice. It's been obviously draining the last couple of weeks with Gibbs-White, so it's quite nice to have some positive and less positive bits of news around Tottenham, but something different to talk about.
Absolutely, something different indeed. And as I said, very excited to talk about MARC GUÉHI. Are we getting too excited? We'll see how realistic that plans out to be in the coming days and hours. But guys, let's get straight into things. Let's talk about, well, it's not a transfer video without, obviously, as you can see from the thumbnail, MARC GUÉHI and Heung Min Son. But it's not a transfer update video if we don't bring you the latest on Morgan Gibbs-White. I mean, everyone comes in here asking for the latest update, and we have got exactly that, which is the Spurs target Morgan Gibbs-White will not be travelling with Nottingham Forest to Portugal. It's due to a personal matter, not transfer related. I've seen that his partner or wife is pregnant. I don't know if that plays a part. Perhaps we're reading too much into it, but he's due not to travel due to personal reasons. Frank, what do you make of this?
Yeah, I think I said this yesterday, that I thought that it wouldn't shock me that if he wasn't there, that it's not just guaranteed to be about Tottenham. I saw someone share something on Twitter today, and it was a thing that his fiance or wife or partner had posted on Instagram, and how there's been complications in things. So I imagine that's probably why he's staying at home. I hope that both Tottenham and Forest, whoever is kind of more in control of him currently, and both of them, give him the love and respect and space that he needs, and that this isn't something that hangs on his shoulders over the next however long, because there are things that are far more important than football transfers and football altogether. So I hope that he's all right. I hope they're okay. And yeah, I mean, of course, I hope it gets done, but right now it's not a priority.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of people in the chat will be saying, we hope we find a resolution to this pretty quickly because it can affect the rest of our transfer window. And I would tend to agree with them. All the transfer links have slowed down since this, here we go to Morgan Gibbs-White. Obviously, we've had the Zabani links. Now we've got a new MARC GUÉHI link, hopefully, that we can talk about. I've already got Derek in here saying that the GUÉHI story is hogwash. Interesting use of adjective there. But we are going to still bring you the MARC GUÉHI latest, but obviously the Morgan Gibbs-White saga does roll on for another week. Back to Monday, back talking about this one. And the other update on this, which was only a few minutes ago, right, Frank, was that Nottingham Forest's bosses have shut down lines of communication with Tottenham over Morgan Gibbs-White issue. Well, this doesn't bode well, does it? I mean, apparently, I read that communications were cut quite a few days ago, but the bosses have shut down lines of communication. This cannot be good, can it, Frank? I mean, I just feel like there's a big update to come from Fabrizio Romero, because he's kept very quiet since he's gone on the Here We Go. Has he even posted since about the legal action? I don't think we've heard much of an update from Fabrizio Romero, have we?
No, I don't think we have. I mean, there's a comment there saying that's old. I think the general story is quite old. Sky Sports have just put it out this evening, which is quite like them to be a little bit behind at times. And so I think that's kind of a matter of what it is. In terms of the actual story itself, I don't really know. It's really hard, I say, to comment because you don't know what's going on behind. Because Fabrizio Romano said nothing. David Ornstein said nothing since the here we go or the initial legal action thing. I mean, there's obviously the personal issues is something important, and so there's kind of you've got to tread carefully. But in terms of the actual deal itself, it feels like Tottenham are going to have just. I don't see how Tottenham don't have the upper hand in this argument. Personally, maybe I'm wrong, but they've paid a release clause, which maybe they've got wind of wrongly. That's down to the agent, not Tottenham, which is CAA based, so obviously very linked with Tottenham. So they've got wind of this, maybe rightly or wrongly, which I imagine is wrongly, but that's not Tottenham's fault. That's on the agent. And they've paid a release clause, which was in his contract, and now he's being stopped from going, so I don't see how Spurs don't have an upper hand in this whole case. I think this is a matter of just Forest trying to make themselves look tough, but sadly, not sadly for us, but sadly for many clubs, and sadly for just the way the world works, is the food chain, and Tottenham are above Nottingham Forest in that, and so maybe this doesn't happen, maybe this isn't one that happens, but Spurs will go and pick off another player, I imagine, from a club that they deem smaller than them after this, if this doesn't happen, and that's how the sport works. I mean, we've had many a player taken from us, and I'm sure stories like this written that, Daniel Levy's cut all communication. He doesn't want to sell Gareth Bale to Madrid and all this. I imagine those stories, you could go back and find hundreds of them. Harry Kane, Bayern Munich, all of them. And so I think it's just a matter of the food chain. They're trying to act tougher than they probably are. I think it will get sorted out. I don't know when. I guess the personal issues and things probably delay it a little bit more. It's quite hard to really, as I say, you've got to tread carefully over the next couple of days and make sure him and his family are okay. But for now, I still don't see a world where this doesn't happen. I mean, don't get me wrong, my confidence is slowly dropping by the day.
Mate, my confidence is dwindling like mad.
Yeah. Oh,
little disconnection. I was literally putting my neck on the line 2 weeks ago about this, and then suddenly, bang! I'm starting to feel a little bit less confident. Out of 10, Frank, how likely do you think it is to be going ahead? Because so many people are asking in the chat in the last few videos.
I mean, as I say, it's really tough. I still would be. I'm still at an 8. I think 10 being very, 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 very confident. I think I'm still at an 8.
Yeah.
I still think it goes through. I still think it's a matter of it just being delayed. I still think Forest are just trying to, punch above their weight a little bit and make themselves heard. And it's probably going to be something that isn't going to happen. I mean, I also think as well, the way this drags on, and as I say, it's really hard if we don't know what's going on personally for Gibbs-White, but the way this drags on, if it is everything we read and that it's Marinakis just causing a problem, it is Gibbs-White, I imagine, is going to probably have the ump at some point with them. Is probably going to be fed up.
Yeah, exactly.
By the way that Forest have acted. So I would be surprised if he doesn't get a move this summer. Whether or not that's to us is a different argument. I think it will be, but I'd be surprised if Gibbs-White plays for Forest this season.
Yeah, what about Simon Cohen? But welcome on in, Simon, saying he'll end up at Man City, because I've seen a few things on social media today about that. Again, not tier 1, not tier 2, probably not even tier 3, but little murmurs about, Gibbs-White to City has come back up again. Let's see how that one plays out. Archer's in here saying, big up, guys. Appreciate your support, mate, and everyone else that's the regulars coming back in. Gibbs-White and not happening, says Derek. Jason, great comment earlier, by the way. I did read through it. All good. And he does obviously have the tools to be a world-class player. Interesting stuff about Xavi Simons and how he wants to move away this summer. Let's see how that plans out. Arsenal linked, Tottenham linked. Where's that going to go through? But yeah, surely we need to sort this out ASAP. What's the point, FC? And mate, I can sense the sarcasm in your comment already. And I'm glad you guys are still hanging on. I cannot hold on much longer. My confidence signing Gibbs-White is, it's going down. And Morgan Gibbs-White has no ambition to play many games, just pick up big wages. He'd go to City. Interesting what you think of that. Anyway, enough about Morgan Gibbs-White, because I feel like we spent 10 minutes on it, and that's enough, because let's be honest, guys, it's not a big update. That's why I haven't put it in the title today. But let's talk about this man. Heung Min Son. Is he staying or is he going? Has been the question for 2 to 3 weeks. Well, probably 2 to 3 months, actually. And Frank, there was a key update today on the subject of Heung Min Son. And that is that Tottenham would miss out on as much as 75% of the fee for playing in South Korea if Son is not part of the touring squad. And that it is believed the fee would be halved were he not to play in the game. Sources believe the key player clause meant that it was virtually impossible for Tottenham to even consider selling Son before the tour in Asia and the game in South Korea. Very interesting stuff, which is maybe why we haven't seen much movement on Son coming away from Tottenham. Obviously, 1 year left on his deal. Is he going to go in January? Is he going to go in this window? But that's a very interesting clause that, you know, Sonny is clearly staying around for the tour. It's almost guaranteed. And it goes on to say that Tottenham, Son's teammates and staff were under the impression that he was ready to leave at the end of this season, although there have since been suggestions he is happy to stay until at least January. Barring injuries, Son will definitely travel for Spurs pre-season tour, as per the clause we just discussed, and so that he can have a feature in Seoul, as Spurs would face a huge reduction in that revenue, as mentioned, if he didn't feature. It's quite big news, actually, Frank, and I'm not surprised there is some kind of clause involved in Son going to South Korea. You know, how many fans he alone pulls in. You know, he's a global icon in that sense. So, you know, I guess Heung Min Son is staying till at least middle of August, but probably till January. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's quite a sad situation, actually. The whole thing. First of all, the fact that they're making the clause that he has to basically stay until they've gone on tour, kind of using him as a bit of a financial mascot,
cash cow, right?
Yeah, exactly, and that's quite sad that this has come to this point where I understand it. I understand the revenue he generates and everything. That's we all see that. That's not and that's good for the club. But it is quite sad that they're kind of feels like they're using him in this way, because if he is going to go in a month's time or whatever, there may be better offers on the table now. There may be offers on the table now that in a month's time they're actually going to go and find some other players that I use. I'm not saying this is a rumor, but Bayern Munich, I know they were looking at Luis Diaz. Maybe they're looking at Son, but they know they can't get Son till next month, so they go for Luis Diaz. I don't know. That's not but that sort of move. So maybe it actually reduces the chance of him getting a move that he wants this summer. And so that is quite sad. I think that Son, certainly in the Reading game the other day, I mean, we've kind of seen it in this season, and I think you can argue for a couple of seasons that the decline was kind of coming and it was on the way. I think he lost that yard of pace. He had a hernia issue, didn't he? And I think he lost a yard of pace then when he was out for a while. He had surgery and things, and it kind of just, you could see it was taking its toll on him, and he was beginning to decline. And sadly, I mean, that the game against Reading the other day, I thought he was poor, but not because of talent. He just looked uninterested, unhappy, unsatisfied with everything. I mean, there's a couple of clips from fans filming him where there's coaches talking to him and things, and he looks genuinely just unhappy and like he doesn't want to be there. And that is really sad, because it's not, as much as it is that he's just getting older and that he's slowing down, his body can't, compete at the top level anymore. Maybe that happens, but it also does feel like he's genuinely just getting to a point now where he maybe, I mean, there's rumours that he's sort of had fallouts within the club or whatever, not with players, but that they're using him in this way. I think he probably has to go, and it's very sad, and it'll be a very sad day, because he's one. Unlike Kane, you always felt like was maybe going to leave. We obviously had the City one in 2021, I want to say it was. And then he obviously ended up going to Bayern Munich. But there were always rumours he was going to go to Man United, or they were going to go here or there or whatever. Whereas with Son, there's never been any of that. There's never been noise. There's never been... You've always felt like he wanted to be at Tottenham, and this was where he was happy. And that feels like it's come to an end. And that's a really sad end. I mean, it's a brilliant end that we've won the Europa League, and he can go out as, as he said himself, a legend now, and that's he's going to be an iconic part of this football club forever. But it is a sad way to go that this is the decline that we're seeing. So I think it's if ever there's a time to go, I think it's now.
Yeah, absolutely. I pretty much agree. And I've just put a poll in the chat. What do you think we should do with Heung Min Son? Keep or sell? Already 24% keep, 76% sell. And that's an interesting, consensus there. It's pretty much most are in the same camp as what you're sort of describing. And it is a sad ending, it's not pretty. And I think it would have made more sense for him to go at the very start of the window and not be, obtained to this sort of having to go to South Korea because it means that our board are essentially going to get more money. It doesn't feel right. It feels like it should be Son's decision, not a commercial decision, which it seems like it very much is at the moment. So let's see how this one plays out. And let me know your guys' thoughts. If you're watching a repeat, whack your comments in about Sonny. About this news today. As Jason's saying, using him as revenue. He might as well be a mascot. It does feel a bit like that. I'd rather be judging Son on his footballing ability and what he can bring to Thomas Frank's system next season and if he's going to be a key part in that sense. So, I don't know. Listen, I agree with this as well. Respect on his name. People just saying get rid. Let's be honest. He's been an absolute club legend for 10 years, right? He joined from Bayer Leverkusen while we're still at White Hart Lane in 2015. And he's been an absolute star pretty much 8 or 9 out of those 10 seasons. So let him make the decision. Cantab saying, big up, everyone. Just joined. What did I miss? Guehi, really? You haven't missed the Guehi news. We're bringing you that spice in just a minute. We've been talking about Morgan Gibbs-White again. And we've been talking about Heung Min Son and the decision to whether to keep him for the current season up and coming. So, as I said, there's a lot of comments coming in, guys. I'm literally overwhelmed with the support, the amount of comments that are coming into the chat. So please keep whacking your comments in. If I do miss your comment and you want to create a talking point, there is now a super chat option at SpursRelated. So you can donate for as little as £1, I think it is, if you want to create a talking point with Frank and myself and obviously guests that do come on. So please do feel free to support the channel. But if you want to support the channel for free, please do keep smashing that like button as you've been doing. Over 200 likes on the last episode. Just smash the like button for free. Smash the subscribe button and turn those notification bells on to never miss us going live and never miss a video. But, as I said, I only plug twice. And if I do plug more than twice in a video, guys, you give me a slap on the wrist and let me know in the comments. But let's talk about this man, MARC GUÉHI, right? Big news today. Obviously, Liverpool have been linked. Now Tottenham Hotspur are linked. And apparently we may join the race to sign him again. Want to make it very clear that this is not what we'd call a tier 1 source, but pretty reliable source in Matt Law at the Telegraph. And that is that the centre-back position at Tottenham, we're looking to invest in the transfer market. Now, the first key question of this, Frank, is does that mean that we're losing someone, aka Christian Romero? Well, we think that Christian Romero is sticking around. However, we know that the transfer market can suddenly swing in certain instances. But Tottenham remain interested in MARC GUÉHI and have made checks in on Ilya Zabiani. I've probably absolutely butchered that. I thought I had it in my head right. But Liverpool are the favourites to sign GUÉHI and PSG at the forefront of the queue for Zabiani. That was better. The other news on this is that it's not clear whether interest in GUéHI and Zabiani relates to uncertainty about Christian Romero's immediate and long-term future with the club. And as I said, the fact that we're suddenly linked with GUéHI now, of course, it's only a couple of different sources. But Frank, does that suggest that the Romero thing's heated up and they're looking in the background for a replacement? Or are we looking too much into this again?
I think there's a few things. There's a comment there about Matt Law being a Chelsea fan, and that is very true. He does often stir things up, and that is kind of the Matt Law's sole goal. It feels like sometimes it's just to wind Tottenham fans up. So that is true. Having said that, he is reliable enough that I'm going to believe it and read into this. So Do I think it's because of Romero? I don't know. I think Romero's going to stay this summer. I'm pretty set on that now. Actually, I'd be very, very surprised, and I could be wrong. I remember saying at the time, I'd be very, very surprised if Harry Kane left that summer, and he did. So things can heat up pretty quickly out of nowhere. I think he will stay. I think he'll be a Tottenham player this season. I would be surprised if we signed a big name centre half this summer as well. And so I'm not sure, to be honest. Maybe as there's a comment there, the idea they're probably going to look to play a back three. We saw it quite often on Saturday where Porro dropped in, or one of them dropped in, and they formed a three. I mean, the second half it was Van der Ven, Vuskovic, and Davies formed a back three. And so maybe this is something that they're going to look to do, and then they're going to loan out to Kai or Vuskovic, which wouldn't be a great shock if one of them go out on loan. I think Takai probably more likely at the moment, having seen what we've seen of Vuskovic. And then you've got Dragusin still going to be a little way away. You've obviously got Kevin Dancer, but if they're going to look to play a three, as I say, they've got 48 games next season. You've got Van der Ven, you've got Romero, you've got Dragusin, who's still out. You've got Danso. Davies is going to be there for one more year. And Takai, I don't know if I said Vuskovic, and Ashley Phillips. Phillips, I think, will go out on loan, maybe leave the club. But I think a back three is certainly something that they might look at. And if you add Marc Guéhi to that, Guehi, Romero, and Van der Ven's a pretty sensational back three. I wish I could. I wish I was a journalist that knew something, but I really can't. But yeah, that's my hunch, is that they might be looking long term if Romero goes next summer. I think the next year will be kind of the decider for Romero. If we do pretty well and we compete and he's happy, I think he'll sign a new long-term deal and he'll be at Tottenham for the years to come. If not, if we are sort of 7th, 8th, 9th again, and there's a fear that we aren't really, we might progress, but it's going to take time, then I think he'll go and they'll look for someone like Marc Guéhi or Zabarnyi, which is why they might look to try and get him in this summer and get him done when they can.
Interesting. We'll see how this one plans out, Frank. I do like Marc Guéhi as a player. It's got to be said, he was excellent in the Euros for England last year. Of course, time goes quick. Was brilliant in the group stages of that tournament. Probably one of England's better players. And we know how good he is. It obviously depends on the price tag and depends what happens elsewhere, as you were alluding to. But I thought I'd bring up some stats in terms of how he is as a centre back. In terms of his per 90 and his percentiles with regards to comparing to other players in the same position. And as you can see, very high up on blocks, very high up on assists and expected assisted goals, very high up in shot creating actions. Successful take-ons, obviously not a real important one for a centre-back, but quite high up on that one as well. And as we know, he's a physical, powerful player that is pretty experienced now. Let's be honest. He's played a number of years at Crystal Palace and he's been sought after by some of the top clubs, including Liverpool. As we can say, he could still end up at Liverpool. So interesting to assess these stats. What do you make of him as a player, Frank? Do you like Marc Guéhi, and would you say he's on a level with Romero or not quite there?
I wouldn't say he's on a level with Romero just because I think Romero's sensational. But that's not to say I don't like Guéhi. I think Marc Guéhi is superb, actually. It really impressed me in the Euros. I'd seen enough of him by that point, but he impressed me in the Euros. I wasn't expecting him to slot in so easily. It was Maguire that missed out, I think, and he came in and was magnificent. Arguably our best player in the tournament. I mean, he was brilliant. And so that was he's one I'd like. I mean, there was the rumor in January on deadline day that we'd bid 70 million for him. That kind of broke out of nowhere and then died out after about an hour, which I imagine was just Spurs looking like, as they do most years, looking like they've tried to do something on deadline day and they've run out of time and all that nonsense. So
classic.
Yeah, I imagine that Marc Guéhi's one that they internally like. They internally probably would want if Romero was to go. But as of right now, unless they really see Romero going in the next year and they think that they have to get him now, otherwise they won't get him at all, I don't see it happening this summer.
No, I listen, I don't see it happening either. But, you know, that's the link today. MARC GUÉHI, you know, that we haven't been spoilt with names recently. Zabarnyi was the other one, the Bournemouth defender. But I know, Frank, you were saying yesterday that Zabarnyi would be an underrated buy and that you actually preferred him to Huijsen that went to Real Madrid, right?
Yeah, I think if we were going to sign a centre-half, I think that Zabarnyi would be the closest to Romero. Is in that he's comfortable on the ball, he can play out like that, but he's also tough and a bit no nonsense at the same time. And so a bit like Huijsen was there, Mickey van der Ven, he was sort of a lot more composed of things, and Romero, as composed as he is, can also nail you in a tackle when he wants to. And I think Zabarnyi is a little bit like that. And so I think if they were going to replace him with anyone, he would be my number one. He's also a little bit younger, quite a bit younger, I think, actually. So he would be my number one, but that's not to say I wouldn't want MARC GUÉHI.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how it plays out. Guys, let us know what you think in the comments below. I've seen a lot of mixed messages about MARC GUÉHI and whether you would like him. The other comparison that you Tot is saying is you know, Mateta or Wharton from Crystal Palace would be the better options. You know, here a lot of people saying Wharton. I've seen so many people saying Wharton, including Stevie here. Bridzi saying Davies and Son should be moved on. Let's talk about in a minute, Frank. Let's talk about outgoings, because we talked about Son. We haven't talked a lot about Solomon. We talked about Richarlison the other day. We haven't talked about Basuma for a few days, but not much movement on the outgoings yet, other than Josh Keeley, who went to Luton, our fourth choice goalkeeper, who had a good loan spell at Leyton Orient last year. So interesting. That's the only movement really on the outgoing side of things. Guys, whack in your comments, your thoughts on MARC GUÉHI, and comment below your thoughts on who needs to get sold first. I'm going to flip that question to you, Frank, while I put that question on a poll. Who do you think needs to be sold within the next, 3 weeks before the season starts?
I think there's a few. There's maybe the more obvious ones that people might argue, like Manuel Solomon, who was injured again for this game this weekend. And as I said, kind of with Richarlison yesterday, it's a bit of a waste of time if you're going to have players that are kind of eating up into the squad space and aren't ever really fit. And so I think he goes. He did well at Leeds last season, and he can go. Basuma's another one that probably has to be moved on, especially if they're going to bring in another midfielder, whether it be Gibbs-White or someone else. I think Basuma's probably one of those to get moved on. And Brian Gill's still at the club. He's another one that's got to be moved on.
Of course, yeah.
You know, so there's a few, and as I kind of said yesterday, and maybe in a slightly more heated manner than I would have liked, that, you know, Richarlison's one that frustrates me, and probably now is the right time to cash in on him. I went and had a look at the numbers just after we came off the stream yesterday, and since he's been at Tottenham, he's played 29.5% of possible Premier League minutes in 3 years, which is
That's
far
terrible.
too low. It's far too low. And when you start a conversation, whenever we talk about him or whatever, with if he stays fit or when he's fit, it usually means there's an underlying problem in that he's never fit. And so Richarlison, as much as I love the guy, and he's funny, he's great, and when he does play consistently, which is rare, but when he does, he can be an asset to Tottenham. I think now is probably the time that he should go. I think Ben Davies will stay. I mean, he signed a new 1-year deal quite recently. I don't see why he'll go this summer. I think he's just one that's comfortable and okay with sitting on the bench and being a bit part player. And I think you need players like that aren't expecting to play every week, but can help the younger ones grow and can just be. He's a friendly face in that dressing room that, you know, if you have to rely on him, he will be fit and he will play. And he's still competent enough to do so. So Ben Davies would be one I'd keep, and then pretty much the rest of some of the. I mean, saying there's a comment there about selling Matthias Tell, who joined a month ago, which is
That's nuts. Let's see what the chat's saying, Frank. Yeah, I pretty much agree with what you're saying. Let's go with the chat. So Ronnie's saying Hill, Davies, Son, Bissouma, Richie, Tell, Odobert, who's only signed last summer. What? No, was it last January? Solomon and all need to go. Ronnie, I think you've got some points there, but I think we need a squad still, and I think some of those players will be useful in the squad, like a Davies, arguably Richarlison. We could debate that. Tell obviously could be in the starting lineup mix. Odobert again could be in the mix as well. He played quite a few games last season. Derek saying Davies, Son, Hill, Bassoon, Richard. Frank, there's a lot of outgoings being said in the chat here. Julian's saying he's spitting facts. He's a seat on a full bus, says Bridzy. Always a bit of beef in the chat. Never fails to amaze me. If you're watching on repeat, the reason I laugh half the time is because I'm just reading some of these comments. They are brilliant. Guys, we're going to stay live for a few more minutes, but I've just whacked in the chat. If you want to create a talking point for the last 10 minutes for me and Frank, whack in your super chats below. You can do it as cheap as £1.50, and we can create a talking point that gets you guys involved as well in the chat, because like this is a good talking point, but I want to talk more about next season, what we can expect. You know, do you think Tottenham have a chance in the Champions League? Do you think we could challenge for the top four? All these types of questions could be talking points. Tell and Odobert need a good season or get them gone. Frank, is that a bit too early to be saying that from Julian?
Yeah, it is. It is. Tell's been here for 6 months. He's a young kid with a lot of raw talent, I think. That looks exciting and looks like he can really have a good impact in the Premier League. I mean, I've waxed lyrical before. I mean, I said on one of the first ones I was on, it might have even been the first stream I came on, that I think if he stays fit next season, there's no reason why he can't get 15 to 20 goals in all competitions next year, because I think the guy's raw talent is up there with some of the better players in Tottenham's squad. Odobert the same. Odobert, I have a bit of a concern with the injury problems. He needs to play more games this season. He was obviously out a long time last season, as I've had a go at Richarlison for that and Manuel Solomon for that, and you know, he has to be there this season. And if he's not, then if he's out for like all season again, then there's an argument to suggest that he needs to be had a look at. But no, certainly not get rid of them. I mean, Matthias Tell was one of the first two names in my fantasy football team today. So, and he's staying there for a reason.
Interesting. It's a good point as well from Darren. He's only just turned 20 and they're acting like Tell, you know, his ceiling is high. That's what we were just saying. You know, he's got a chance. Tell his class. Odobert is worrying. We should loan him before loaning more. Not sure. I mean, Luke, and I see your point. I think Odobert is genuinely a pretty decent player. I mean, he's not a world beater, but he's a good option to have. I think with Tell, I can't believe the amount of people that are already on Tell's back. I feel like he's probably the most under pressure player at Tottenham, and he's only been here a matter of months. It seems crazy, but listen, I'm not saying you guys are wrong. Maybe the season will start and Tell won't be having a good start to the year, but it'd be interesting to see how that one plays out for sure. One thing I wanted to mention as well, Frank, is how well we think this man will do next season, because I think it's interesting to assess whether we think he can get double figures in goals or assists. Because obviously people keep saying he only got 3 goals and 5 assists for West Ham last season in the league, which is obviously pretty worrying numbers, but has to be said that it was at West Ham United, who didn't even finish much above us, did they? So, Frank, what's your thoughts? And guys, get it in the comments below as well. What do you think will be a good return for Mohamed Kudus this season? Do you think he can get 10 goals, 5 assists, or vice versa? Frank, what do you think?
Yeah, I do. I mean, as long as he stays fit, which is important. I think I want to say that his injury record's actually pretty good, which means Dr. Tottenham will make sure that he never plays again, I'm sure, at some point this season. Because that's what we do to any player we ever sign. Like Solanke joined and he was, hadn't had one injury at Bournemouth, and all of a sudden he's injured 4 times last season. So that's what we do. So I imagine his injury record is nothing to go by. But providing he stays fit, which I'm hoping he does, he's going to be a really, really pivotal part of Tottenham's season this year. You kind of saw it in the 45-minute stint the other day. It's just the being able to drive with the ball, being direct at pace, which we don't really have from anyone. That's not something that any of our players really do. No one really runs at you with pace. Kudus does it without pace, but he does it in a direct manner. Tell but you kind of see glimpses of it. Johnson doesn't do it at all. And so it's certainly a new sort of dynamic that we've added to the squad, and that's very exciting. His numbers last year were poor. I'm not going to sit here and pretend they weren't. They were poor.
West Ham's numbers were poor. Like, did Bowen get as good a numbers as he did in previous seasons?
I don't. I know that Bowen's numbers were good. If you look at them individually, I'm not sure what they were in comparison to other seasons. But don't get me wrong, Bowen's fantastic, and I'm not serious about West Ham. Bowen's a top player, and so there was certainly questions over Kudus' numbers, and I agree that they weren't good enough. You know, you're playing for supposed to be one of the better players at an average Premier League side. I know they weren't great, but an average Premier League side, you can't be scoring 3 goals a season. Having said that, the year before his numbers were better. He had decent numbers at Ajax. There's one bad season doesn't mean you're a bad player. You know,
I also think what's interesting, Frank, is that Kudus we could see move to the 10 or at left wing if it doesn't go well at right wing. Because obviously, say for example, was the chat saying Tell doesn't get off to a flyer, you know, at left wing. Put Kudus on the left, put Johnson back on the right, and Vaughan Gibbs-White or Maddison in the middle, and then suddenly you've got a different dynamic. So I feel like West Ham probably didn't give him too much of an opportunity to play all of his preferred positions. And that's something that I'm sure Thomas Frank, not yourself, will experiment next season. So it'll be interesting. Just looking at the chat on the who needs to be sold first poll, 59% of you have gone for Brian Hill, 10% Son, 17% Basuma, 15% Solomon. To me, that says that there's a few more Solomon fans than maybe we think, Frank, and maybe he should be given a chance in pre-season against Luton on Saturday, or a game next week we got against Newcastle in South Korea. What do you think? Your last kind of talking point about Solomon, because I think it's an interesting one, because there's clearly a decent player in there. He had amazing numbers in the Championship, but not sure on his way of getting into this team, especially as we have so many different wingers. I'll come to you on your thoughts on Solomon, guys. Get your comments in on Solomon in the chat. On your thoughts on whether he should be given another chance. Just looking at the numbers, 150 of you in the house. Really appreciate all the support lately. Keep smashing that thumbs up. Is that my 2 uses of the plug there, Frank? That's the second use. Only 54 likes. Let's get that to 100 likes. And also, if you are new to the channel, please do subscribe. We are 4 subscribers away from 3.6k on the road to 4k. So hopefully, if there's 5 of you in the chat now that haven't subscribed to Spurs Related, hit that subscribe button for free and get us over that line to 3.6k tonight, and keep smashing that subscribe button and the thumbs up and the notification bell. And that's my plugs out, Frank. I'm out of plugs. I've got no more to use for this video. But yeah, what's your thoughts on Solomon, mate?
I think his numbers were good in the Championship. I think that's probably the level of Manor Solomon. Is a lower end Premier League player, higher end Championship player. I mean, that's kind of I think that's kind of what you're going to get from him. I think if we want to kick on and finish in a European spot in the Premier League again, and whatever, I think he's probably got to be moved on. As I say, that you need players that are fit and available. And already, for whatever reasons, Richarlison and Solomon have both missed the game we've already played this season. We played one game this season, they've both missed it already, which apparently Richarlison's wasn't injury and Solomon was, but it doesn't bode well for the rest of the season when you're going, you need to be available for 48 competitive games at least, if not 50, 60. So he's one that goes. And also, I think the thing to be really interesting with someone like Manor Solomon, if he goes, you obviously lose a left winger. You've got Moore, you've got Odobert, you've got Tell, and you've got Son currently. I think Manor Solomon probably goes. Sorry. Solomon probably goes. Gill probably goes, and I think Son probably goes as well. And so I would be absolutely staggered, especially if we get 30, 40 million for Son, which is quite possible from Saudi Arabia or wherever. I would be absolutely staggered if they don't sign quite a big name left winger. If it's someone like Matoma or someone that's going to come in, they're obviously going for, whether Gibbs-White happens or not, they're obviously going for players with Premier League experience. It's obviously what they want, players that have played at this, like in a good level in the Premier League and can actually compete. Kudus, Gibbs-White, Matoma might be one they look at that comes in and will make you a better side. And so I'll be absolutely staggered if Son went, if they didn't replace him with someone big this summer. Even though they've already got Tell, I think they'll get another one. So it ultimately depends on things like that.
No, I do agree. I think it'll be interesting to see where these links come from, as you were just alluding to. Most of the signings or the players that we're linked with, if you think about it, 75, 80% are from the Premier League or Premier League proven. We talk about Palhinha. Yeah, he's from the Bundesliga, but he spent most of his time at Fulham where we were interested in him. And it feels like Spurs have learned from the whole thing about, we talk about Brian Hill. What a gamble that was from at the time from Sevilla. That's gone nowhere. Valise, that went nowhere. That was a terrible signing. So some of these players from abroad, and I'm even talking like 10 years ago, you go back to Janssen, what a flop that was. Soldado, terrible signing. Nkudu, awful. Ndombele, what could have been. But so many of these players from overseas in other leagues come to the Premier League while being a good player in the current league, and then they come here and they're like a lost lamb. They just can't adapt to the Premier League, and obviously it's a very different league to a lot of other leagues out there, especially in the modern day. So I feel like the reason why we are linked with some of these Premier League proven players and these Premier League players is safety. It's a safer investment, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, exactly. And so what they're going to give you. Stability and being able to push you on and drive you on. And so I think it's important that we get more of those sort of experienced players in, because we've got a great crop of young talent, but you've got to support it now. You've got to support it now with players that are experienced at the top level, and players like Gibbs-White and players like Kudus. And you go through. I mean, I saw there's a comment there about it. I saw a comment a minute ago. I saw a tweet come up a minute ago about the interest in Garnacho again for £40 million. I'm not Garnacho's biggest fan, but he's played at the top level in the Premier League. He's played for Argentina. He's another experienced Premier League head, and that could be the sort of signing they pick up. I think, given Thomas Frank's openness about certain policies and not wanting, certain types of personalities, I'd be surprised if Garnacho happened. But that sort of thing that they want players that have played at the top of the Premier League and middle of the Premier League that can take you up a level, and I think these guys can.
Interesting. Yeah, it'd be Garnacho. Oh man, I don't know about Garnacho. A lot of people saying they would, Frank. What? Sorry, what? Just to get your opinion cemented on this, would you take Garnacho, Frank?
For the right money, if Thomas Frank's okay with it, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I would.
I get he's a good player, and when he came on in that final, he was one of Man United's best players. I just think there's an attitude problem there. Yeah. I know a lot of people say, get over the attitude problem. Kudus has an attitude. I understand your point. I don't know about Garnacho. I think there's an issue there.
I think ultimately it depends on what Thomas Frank. Yeah, this is the thing.
And this, right?
If Thomas Frank is, say that he's very, very open about the personalities that he doesn't want. If he doesn't approve, then I don't want him anywhere near, because I only want what Thomas Frank wants. If Thomas Frank sits there and goes, this guy's a much better player than he looks at Man United, I can get a good tune out of him. And I actually don't think he's a bad bloke. Maybe he's just been painted this way at United, as many people have. I mean, I'm not, but United are quite poorly run and have been quite poorly run for a number of years. And there's always constant stories about this player's falling out with this or this player's. And so you don't actually know half of what's true and half of what isn't. And yeah, I do agree with this kind of what I'm saying. That so if Thomas Frank sits there and goes, I can get a tune out of him, and he isn't as bad as the media, as everyone in the media suggests, then and they can say 35, 40 million, they buy him in, he's 22, 23, whatever he is. And Sonny goes at 32, 33 for 40 million. I mean, that's pretty incredible business if they think that that's the one that can take them forward. But it ultimately depends on Thomas Frank and the price of it.
Absolutely, yeah. It'd be interesting to see if Man United would want to even sell him to a Premier League rival. I think that might even be the first question on this as well, especially to us. They must be a little bit sour about us after the end of the last season and what happened. Lucan, a few good comments today, by the way. Really intelligent comments from a lot of you guys. It's a gamble, but I think Man United is the cause of his attitude. It's kind of what you were alluding to there, Frank. I think he's someone who wants to enjoy the football, and I think he will at Tottenham. Kuti can take him under his wing too. Yeah, should Kuti be stayed around, that is. hopefully we'll be fine on that. PKD, Kudus slapped up 3 of our players and got a 5-match ban. He passed the D-head test. Yeah, it's all about that test indeed, as we all know. But guys, that is everything for today. 45-minute little update for you guys, talking all things Tottenham, all things transfer news. Before you all click off the video and maybe you're watching on repeat, please do smash the like button on the way out. Smash the subscribe button if you're new on the way to 4K subscribers. And ding on those notification bells to never miss us going live, where we'll be going live again tomorrow at a similar time. And you'll never miss an offline video when we do videos on tactics, analysis, match reviews, fan interviews outside stadiums, and vlogs to come next season at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Obviously, if you see me interviewing fans outside the stadium next season, come over and get interviewed and feature on the channel. Appreciate all the support in the comments. Thank you so much. We'll see you again tomorrow. And remember, as always, come on, you Spurs! Come on.